Ann Widdecombe's here, former Home Office Minister, of course. Ann, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Isn't it pleasurable to see a leader actually working in the job that he's in 7 days a week, you know, not stopping for anything, getting an awful lot done that he said he would get done?
Well, that's probably why young people now are, inclined towards dictatorship. Of course, what they actually mean is, first of all, a benign dictatorship, and secondly, an elective dictatorship, so that the country decides what it will be. But then, of course, what you get is decisive action.
Yes.
And you make a manifesto pledge and you can actually put it into action in very quick time. Whereas we have here a lot of very bureaucratic processes, which mean that even when you want to do something, even if you start to do it, it's going to take a very long time.
Right. And, of course, when it comes to getting rid of migrants who are unwanted, we have the ECHR to deal with. We've got Giorgia Meloni apparently trying to, today in Italy, deport a load of people and try and get around the ECHR. We, on the other hand, seemingly are allowing more and more people in. Figures from the Home Office show more than 50 relatives of refugees have been allowed to join them in Britain every single day. Of the most recent sort of few weeks and months. So the numbers have now more than trebled to 19,154 in a year. These are all people who are family members of asylum seekers, many of whom have come here on small boats from Syria, Sudan, Eritrea, Afghanistan, Iran. I mean, this is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you've got to draw a very, very clear distinction, and this is why Reform said in the last general election that it wouldn't be normal to have families accompanying immigrants. We have to distinguish here between asylum seekers who have not been granted asylum, who have not been recognised as refugees, who may well have come here completely illegally and should go straight back. We have to distinguish between those bringing in relatives and people who have been, and they're a minority, accepted as genuine refugees, also trying to bring in immediate family who may be in equal danger. But in general, no, if you give a visa, you give it to one person.
But these are people who have come here, many of them have come here on the small boats, many of them have come here illegally, they've sought asylum and they've been granted asylum, but they don't have to meet any basic language skills in terms of speaking English, they don't have to show that they can support themselves, and they are able to access the NHS for free. So, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? I mean, it might be very nice for us to do it, but I think we're past that point now, aren't we?
No, listen, nobody who comes from a safe country should be able to claim asylum. That is why Reform have said if you arrive here on a small boat from France, of all places, automatically your claim is refused.
Yes.
There is a very small core of genuine asylum seekers who do not come from safe countries, who get into this country by extraordinary routes, not through other safe countries. Now, there is a distinction between the two, and we're not making that distinction. And nobody who comes in on a small boat from France should ever be granted asylum, because, to put it bluntly, they've come from a perfectly safe country.
Also, the more that we grant asylum to those people, the more likely more people will come on that route to get asylum, knowing that they'll be able to get it.
Well, yes, of course. I mean, that is why we should automatically say anybody who comes in on a small boat is refused asylum before they even ask for it.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Meanwhile, we've got loads of other cases that we could talk to you about all day, but I'm just going to pick one out. This is today's madness of the day, if you like. Violent drug dealer dodged deportation because his daughter might be transgender. It says here, the dad of three, granted anonymity by the courts, don't you know, was convicted of dealing crack and heroin. He's 48 years old, he's from Jamaica, but he's allowed to stay in this country under European human rights laws, despite the fact he's been jailed multiple times. 5 different spells in prison he's had since he was living here since 1991. Isn't that marvellous?
Well, can you imagine Trump putting up with that?
No.
Can you imagine anybody who's got any sense at all putting up with that?
No. Well, in fact, I've seen... I saw J.D. Vance talking at the weekend, saying if somebody has committed a crime in my country and he's from another country, I don't want him in my country and we're going to kick him out. And I mean, that should be the rule.
Well, certainly where anybody's committed a crime serious enough to go to prison, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it at all.
Right.
I'm not about somebody who's parked on a double yellow line, but somebody who's committed an actual crime and has been sentenced to prison and has used the resources of the state in prison,
yes,
that person should have to go back to their own country.
Yeah. And the rules say that they should be sent back, but of course we've got these loopholes with the Human Rights Act and the human rights lawyers who say that his right to a family life outweighs the right to be deported by the state. Well, I think it's time we change that.
Parliament makes the law. Parliament should make the law. No international body should be able to tell us what to do. And we can come out of ECHR, and that is what we should be doing. And then we can interpret the law as we decide.
I mean, you would think it was straightforward, wouldn't you? You would think that that was common sense, Anne. You would think that those of us who have common sense would be able to dictate to those who clearly don't have it. But you do wonder. I've got another story here for you in the Telegraph, front page of the Telegraph. Police officers have been told not to use the terms black sheep or blacklisted, and you can't say a pregnant woman either. This is a 9-page document given to staff at the Bedfordshire Police and Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire Constabularies. It's a 2023 diversity guide which has been retreaded and updated for 2025.
And that is exactly why reforms say that our first action in government will be to get rid of every single equality, diversity and inclusion post in the public sector. The police are moaning that they have no money. They're moaning that they can't monitor things like shoplifting. They're complaining they haven't got enough personnel. And then they're spending time and resources issuing that sort of junk. Now, come on.
It is incredible. The reference resource for staff and officers describes gender as a social construct relating to behaviours and attributes. It says there is a wider range of gender identities than just male and female.
Well, it's a complete nonsense. There are two genders. There are two genders. And, we may teach our children in schools that there are 72 genders, but actually they'll only ever encounter two.
I mean, again, not difficult, this, is it? I mean, and the trouble is you're never going to get Starmer to do it. Donald Trump has done it. He said it in his inauguration speech. There are only two genders, to a massive great cheer. I don't understand why we have to suffer under the yoke of this nonsense.
Well, we have to suffer it because we elected a Labour government.
Very true. If only we could unelect them, that would be great. Anne, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Ann Widdecombe talking perfect sense here. One from Francis in Llanelli. She says, morning, Mike. A 45-minute call is very different to a 45-minute discussion. And John says, morning, Mike. John from Chorley. When we were younger, we were too busy working to pay the bills to get stressed out. Great show as usual. Well, exactly right. The only reason it lasted 45 minutes, says Richard, and we're talking about the Trump phone call, was because Trump kept falling asleep.